Well, you'd think after 13 years on a platform that you'd have a clue as to how to run the thing. Good grief. I apologize for that. It was 3 minutes until the stream started. I thought, well, I'll just record a really quick short video and remind folks to come on over to the stream. We haven't had one for a few days, and this is what happened. My goodness. Welcome, welcome, beloved. Well, if you don't know already, we have our first really big wildfire cooking. It's not threatening us personally. It is to the south of us. My main concern, or not concern, well, I guess maybe a bit of a concern, is, of course, my son Jack is going to be going out on fire pretty soon. He just red carded and got his Sawyer certification and is waiting orders. So we've been having a little fun around here, packing up his red bag and getting things ready. And I have to curb my enthusiasm with the understanding that this is his thing, not my thing. And to say that I'm not a little bit green with envy would be an understatement. So what does that mean for me? Am I fully retired? Well, not per se. We have a lot of friends that our homes basically are threatened. They're in the direct line of this fire, and this is something that we've been concerned about for a long time. The particular area where this fire is burning is very, very difficult because of the terrain and mainly the wind. The wind, of course, you know, when you live in an area that's famous, one of the most famous areas for windsurfing, kiteboarding, that's for a reason. And when a fire gets in that environment, you know, it's off to the races and burning up hills. So what we've been doing this morning, of course, getting ourselves ready, because no one's immune. Anyone who lives in the urban interface, you know, we could have our own fire start here at any time. And as we enter into red flag conditions, you know, that's always a threat. So what that means for us personally is getting our affairs in order, making sure that the sprinklers are on, that everything around the house is green, basically a defensible space, which, if you've seen, we certainly have. I'm getting everything ready, chainsaw kits, my personal gear, skid unit, all of our vehicles. I'm sharpening chains, you know, all that stuff, because we have friends that's homes are threatened right now. I called them. I reached out to folks this morning and just told everyone, hey, you guys have what you need? Do you need to store anything? Do you have any animals, et cetera, et cetera? Do you need us to come in? I could put together a small crew to come in and help prep your house. That could mean moving firewood. It could mean cleaning out gutters. It could mean pruning and cutting around bushes, basically clearing a safe space around the home to give it every chance of surviving the fire, because it's that can make a big difference. Now, so that who knows? Who knows? It's hard to say. So I like to have things ready not only for my own, but usually what ends up happening is I get a call from a friend. Can you come lend a hand? Can you help us to evac? Can you help? So I want to be sure that we're ready for that. So that's kind of where we're at today. We have a couple super chats. We have a super chat from our friend, Mr. Dr. Prepper. Good to see Dr. Prepper. Also, folks were asking me, how come we haven't been doing the live stream? It's been really a crazy last few weeks. First off, we took off for a week for Jack. We went up to, was it Minnesota? I forget. Those Midwest states, they all kind of run together for me, for a national speech and debate competition. So we were up there for a week. As soon as we got back from that, we flew down to LA for, Mrs. W and I, we were down there 3-4 days for VidCon. And then we just, we had another trip. Where was it? Man, it all runs together. Oh, we went over to Spokane and spent a couple days with our friends over at JK Boots, which you guys saw the video from that. So we just got it all out of the way, and so we've been on the road, we've been traveling all over the place, and that's why we haven't been doing the stream. So we're back. We're back until the fire calls. So that's where we're at. Dr. Prepper writes, hey, I just wanted to say hello. I am still here. How is Mrs. W's cow plan coming along? Well, I do have some updates on that. On the carnivore diet, a good well, salt, and some cows is all needed for food security. Yeah, indeed it is. Dude can last a long time just eating meat, right? Protein. Yeah, I feel very fortunate in this area. Well, what Dr. Prepper's talking about is that we just started raising, we're going to be baling our own hay. That's a first for me. I have not had the equipment to do it. Last year we baled Now, I irrigate the field, and I'm learning I'm learning about this from my neighbors. I don't have any background in this, so I've kind of got a handle on that. My neighbors have been helping me, and they've been complimenting on how nice my pasture looks. So I think that's good. Been mending fences, fixing fences, and really putting a lot of emphasis on irrigating and learning how to do that. I wanted to do my own bales. Last year we had a local farmer that came and baled it for us. That's commonly done. Not everyone can afford to have their own baling equipment. So out here anyway, if someone has baling equipment, it's very common for them to come out and they'll do multiple fields for you. And it's usually a 50-50 split. Either you can pay them directly, or you can pay them in hay, or you just do a split, whatever's fair. But I'm very happy to report Mrs. W and I reached out to our friends at Yanmar and said, would you be willing to provide some haying equipment for us? We have, we don't have like a gigantic place, but something small. And they said, we would love to. So that, and everything is being put together, and it should be here very shortly. So that's going to be really nice. I told the folks at Yanmar, I said, would you be so kind as to offer me some training? Because I don't even know where to begin. I mean, I know my way around a tractor, construction tractor, but when it comes to agricultural stuff, I really am ignorant about that. And I know you can mess stuff up very, very quickly. So they very graciously offered to send out a tutor that will help me, teach me how to hook everything up. So I'll be sharing all that with you. You guys will get to learn with me. We will all learn how to do our very own hay together. And I'm excited about that. But where does it end? You know, as soon as you move on to that, you're like, oh, I want to do hay and become more independent. Well, now I'm going to need a barn, right? So I suppose we'll be building a barn next as well. Also, quick update on there's so many things that have been going on. Everything has been everything is falling into place for the homestead, what our future plans are that we've talked about. Another thing that's coming up is we're going to be putting up a log cabin as an accessory dwelling on the new place. This is going to be something that folks would be able to stay in, that we'll be able to share. It's going to be an 18 by 24, a real legitimate log cabin that we're going to be doing a raising on here. What my plan to do is when we pour the foundation for our new house, we're building ourselves a small, normal house and getting out of this big house. We'll be pouring the foundation for the cabin as well. And there may be an opportunity. What I'd like to do is to invite some folks out if you'd like to be part of that raising, meaning that once the slab and the floor, the joists are all down, the kit will arrive, and then we can install this together and do an old-fashioned raising. So that'll happen pretty quick, but we just submitted the final drawings on that. It's going into engineering because we have a significant snow load, so that needs to be all checked out, and it's awesome. Awesome, a lot of things happening. So to answer Dr. Prepper's question on getting our own cows, that's going to be the next phase. Let me get the haying sorted out and make sure that I know what I'm doing with that. And then we'll look at getting a few maybe Dexter cows. I would love Dexter cows. That's what Mrs. W wants. She's pretty fond of those. Thank you, Dr. Prepper. Good to see you back. Mr. Joe C. Welcome, Joe. Good to see you here. Joe writes, prayers for you, Jack, and your neighbors during these ultra dry days. Boy, it is very dry, very dry. People have been asking me, what are the origins of the fire? Does anyone know what caused it? I do not know. You know, there's always conflicting reports. People's emotions are running really high. One thing I can tell you is that there are 1,000 people that are threatened currently right now, and it has zero containment, and it's a really bad situation. I've heard that there are already many homes that have been lost. It's hard to get information. It comes out and it trickles out slow. You know, they close everything off so you can't get in there and look and see, so we're just going to have to wait and see. So I don't really know. The reports are starting to come in. I've got the command center. Make sure I keep that booted up here. I got the command center set up, monitoring all the radio communications. I'll tell you, man, I have been so grateful for the radio kit that Evan put together. Many of you who ordered the Proho 3 radio kit, those are arriving now. I know he's shipping. And people have been reporting back to me that they're very, very pleased, and I'm really happy to hear that. I don't want to, I understand $500 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for everyone, and I want to it makes me very happy to know that the folks that have invested in this, when they're getting everything and they're putting it, they're opening it up and seeing it, getting their hands on it, that they're very pleased, that they feel like they get a value and something that is beneficial and helpful. So shout out to Evan and Radio Made Easy from him. Also, as a little side note, as I shared in yesterday's short video, he put together some remote antennas, and that's been a godsend to me as well. I've been hanging those things up there, getting better signal reception. I'm able to get the pickup on some of the radio traffic that I wouldn't be able to do if it wouldn't have been for that. So I'm just pleased as punch for that. So shout out to Evan. I've even been wondering what would happen if I spliced all my long extensions together and hooked my antenna up to my drone and lifted it up high as 75, 80 feet up there. If that would even help. The new drones have a half-hour loiter time. So well, I might have to try that. Maybe we'll do that together when we close the stream down. But I've been really, really happy with that. Thank you, Joe C. And we have a new member message from Jamie. Jamie's been with us for 5 months. Jamie says, thank you for the ratchet extension with a handle recommendation. Makes such a big difference. Big thanks for the toolbox recommendations. Yeah, shout out to you. I appreciate that. I'll tell you, I was wrong about toolboxes. I picked up on something that Adam Savage said. He mentioned years ago that toolboxes are a place where tools go to die. And that is very true. That was always the truth for me in the past. But I've adapted my way of thinking, and I use a toolbox now. Having a toolbox that rolls around that you can move around with you to your work is really where it's at. I've been enjoying that very much. Thank you, brother. And we have a member message from our friend, the Battle Chemist. The Battle Chemist, he knows what's going on. He probably smells some of the smoke that we're dealing with over here. Battle Chemist writes, I've been watering my lawn around the house and prepping my Honda WH20X in case we are again in a fire zone. Yeah, the WH20X, that's Honda's high-pressure pump, if memory serves. I had one of those when I set up my first fire rig. If you want, it really is the thing to get for professional homeowners. If you live in the urban interface, meaning if you live in a spot where your house or property could be threatened by a wildland fire, I would highly recommend you take it upon yourself, take some measures to have the ability to fight some fire. And that usually means a water source. Once you get the water source sorted out, then you need some sort of a pump, something to get the water onto the fire. Now, to invest in dedicated fire equipment, high pressure pumps and such is very, very expensive and really outside the realm of most pro-ho. But if you want to put together a kit on the cheap, if you're balling on a budget like I used to be, what Battle Chemist is talking about is perfect. That WH20X is Honda's version of a high pressure pump. Now it's not a true high pressure pump like a fire pump, which would push up to 150, 200 PSI, but it will push up to about 60, maybe 65, 70, somewhere in there. And that is more than adequate to get a lot of water on a fire. And you couple that up with a 1.5-inch line in a fire nozzle, you have a pretty formidable fire suppression system for a reasonable price. And then, of course, Honda is the byword for reliability. And what I really love about that pump, that WH20X, if I've got it right, I think I do, is that not only is the engine Honda, but the pump is as well. So of the best quality. And I used that for a long time, and that was a really great little unit. What you do, if you want to do it on a cheap, if you want to protect your home, go down to Walmart, go to Facebook Marketplace and get yourself an inflatable kids pool, a big one, the biggest one you can afford. Set that thing up. You can have those things set up in no time. Start filling it. Throw your garden hoses in there, 24 hours, 48 hours, you get that thing full. Now you've got thousands of gallons of reserve water that you can draw upon to defend your home and your property. If you have a creek or a well that you can draw directly from, that's even better. An unlimited supply is nice. But a swimming pool, an inflatable swimming pool is inexpensive, effective, and it holds a whole bunch of water. And I would highly encourage you to do that. Even if you don't set it up, just have one on hand, store it away, and then when you need it, it will be there for you. And that's really the way to go. Shout out to the Battle Chemist for being proactive and taking matters into his own hand. That's the way we do it around here. Mr. Jason Barr, shout out to you. Welcome, Jason. Good to see you back. Jason writes, what do you find yourself carrying in your pocket these days? Must be nice to have pockets. Well, it is nice to have pockets. I can tell you, I was made whole today. I didn't mention this because I was so embarrassed. But the reason why I cut my finger on that 9400 Benchmade was because I had misplaced the OG, the original. There it is. That's the official knife of professional homeowners right there. The Benchmade Osborne 940. This came back into my life today. It has been missing for some time. That's why you haven't seen it. Do you know where I found it? I will never learn. I will absolutely never learn. So in the past, I used to listen to Nut and Fancy, right? And Nut and Fancy really kind of got me into the idea of, I don't know, helped me get into the idea with the fire department of having systems. Systems. A system for a bug out bag. A system for a radio kit. A system for, whatever that may be. Fire. Retrieval. Individual systems. In doing these systems, what I don't particularly like about it is that you're like, okay, I'm going to have a dedicated bag for this and that. So you pull from your inventory, and you pull a flashlight, and you pull a headlight, and you pull a compass, and you put it in here, then you store it somewhere. And then you forget about it, right? You forget about it, and then every once in a while you go in there and you rob something, and then you have an incomplete kit, then you don't know what you have. I think that's not the way to go. I found my pocket knife stuck. I got back into my old habits where I get back into building systems, right? I put a little system. So I was going through, we were prepping Jack's red bag. He's on call. He could leave at any moment. He's got his credentials, he's got his training, he's got his certification, he's ready to go. They're just waiting for the call up. So when you get the call, when you get the phone call or the text as a wildland firefighter, as a rule, you have 1 hour to respond. Or 1 hour before you need to be wheels up and traveling. So I told Jack, I said, let's have all your stuff together. He's got to have 21 pairs of socks, 21 pairs of underwear, 21 t-shirts, you get the drift. For me, that's the way that I did it. You can only be deployed for 14 days, regardless of what you do. I don't care if you're a hot shot, if you're a type 1, type 2 crew, engine boss, whatever, 14 days is the maximum. And then they need to cut you loose. And you need to go and have some rehab time, some R&R. Because they work you long days, sometimes double shifts. This idea of 9 to 5, that's completely out the window. You do what you need to do to get the job done. And if that means working double shifts for 2 weeks, that's what it means. Sometimes that happens. If they're really pressed, if they're really having a hard time, they don't have enough resources to cover you. If you were to leave, they can force you or press you into a 21-day stay. So that's 21 days of working in the worst, most difficult environment possible. 21 days. It's a long time. It's almost a month without a day off. I have been in that situation multiple times. And what I learned the hard way, what I found is I could deal with that environment. I could deal with that workload, provided I had 3 things. Every day I had clean socks, clean underwear, and a clean t-shirt. Even though my Nomex, my greens and yellows were completely black with soot and just filthy, so disgusting that you could literally lean the pants up against a wall. How stiff and crusty they get. What made it possible was having a fresh garment, a fresh pair of those 3 things, socks, underwear, and t-shirt. Makes all the difference. And many times when I woke up, 14, 15, 16 days into a deployment, waking up at 4 a.m., your body aching and hurting and just really dreading the day, to be able to slip on those 3 items clean, it helps tremendously. So putting all that together, we got all that together, and then the rest of the stuff, well, we'll probably go over that today in a video. So that's what Jack and we've been working on that. Oh, audio's too hot? Man, I'm sorry. Let me fix that. You guys tell me earlier next time. I backed it off one. That way I'm not blowing your ears out. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Mr. Jason Barr, also, he writes, remote producer here. We have a little enthusiasm is clipping the mic. All right, let me know if that's better. I backed it off. I have 4 settings, and I took it from 4 to 3. Andrew P. has a very good question. What is my opinion on mandatory military service? That has changed. If you were to ask me this 3 or 4 years ago, I would have been on board with that, 100%. 2-year mandatory military service, and that would mean for the boys and the girls. Now, we have been told, and they never tire of telling us, that women are strong and independent and don't need no man, and that they can do everything that a man can do. And that's what we've been told. So that's the way that it is now. So therefore, if that's the case, then everything needs to be equal. My question to you, beloved, is this. If that's the case, and if that's the world that we now live in, why is it that our sons have to register for selective service, but our daughters do not? How can that be? How can you give equal rights to men and women if only half of that, the men, have to actually go and put their bodies on the line to defend this country? How can that be? It seems to me that those that are willing to put their bodies on the line to defend this country would have more say in matters of policy than those who do not. Would that not make sense? Would that not be fair? I don't know. I don't know how we can justify this. I thought it was quite interesting to see that in the Ukraine conflict, they basically, any men that were of military age, they were forbidden from leaving the country, locked down. There still are roving press gangs going around dragging men out of bars and restaurants and schools and cafes, even out of their own cars, and conscripting them and throwing them into the service. While the Ukrainian women are free to travel wherever they want, cross borders, go make TikTok videos, take vacations in Spain, while their men are fighting and dying. Isn't that interesting? So, with that being said, again, if you were to ask me years ago, I would have said, yes, I think that that's a great idea. I think it would be a great idea to have mandatory military service, 24 months for everyone, male and female. Now, if someone were to object to that and say, I don't want to do this, I don't support the military, I don't support us going around and killing brown people all over the world to enrich corporations and banks, I would respect that. But let's have a separate tract. Our forests, our national forests are vast. Our national park network is vast and in great need of maintenance. The reason why, in my opinion, we're having these catastrophic fires is poor management. Some even say that it's by design. Some even say that, well, are we going to go down the road of conspiracy? I can tell you, though, from personal experience, it is of my opinion that a lot of these catastrophic fires are a direct result of poor forestry management. Could we not, should we not have inmate crews, young men and women that didn't want to go into the military, let's say that we had military service, could they not go and work in the forest for cleaning, maintenance, trail maintenance, rebuilding bridges that are not washed out? Would that not benefit children or young people as a whole? I don't think there's anyone here in this very select group that would disagree with that. It wouldn't do them any harm. It would actually do them some good. And keep it co-ed, or not co-ed, segregate it. Boys should not be educated with girls, in my opinion. They learn different. It's just a distraction that doesn't need to happen. Are you there to get an education, to prepare you for life? Are you there to run around and play grab ass with girls? I mean, really, that's what it is. Public school has really devolved into nothing more than just babysitting for parents that don't want to raise their own kids, really. I mean, there are exceptions, but that is, and it's a social experiment. If you don't mind throwing your children into the wolves' den of indoctrination, they're going to teach them and expose them to things that are completely contrary to your values and belief, then you throw them out there. But I will tell you, beloved, that I think that you will give an account. If you willingly are throwing your kids into an environment that you know is bad for them because you just don't see another way, that you are unwilling to take on the personal responsibility of raising and educating your own kids, and don't tell me you can't do it. Don't tell me you can't do it. We have families in this valley here that I don't want to use the word poor. I want to use the word that they've made choices. They made choices to live frugally and simply so their wives could stay at home and raise their kids. I know families in this valley that are homeschooling with big families, and the father alone is working and he's not making a lot of money. They make sacrifices. They have one car in the family. They have a modest home. They make the conscious choice to personally educate and raise their kids and not put them into a government indoctrination center. So don't tell me any of your excuses, how you can't afford this and can't afford that. Now, there's always going to be an outlier. I'm not saying all. If that's you and you find yourself a single parent, you married someone that left you in the lurch, that you counted on, that betrayed you, and here you are with young kids and a family, I'm not talking about you, beloved. You're in a circumstance, a situation that you have no control over. You do what you got to do. I understand that. I'm talking about the majority, and the majority of people are unwilling to lower their standard of living to educate their children. That's just a simple fact. And I would be willing to guess that you will give an account of that in the final judgment. Will the Lord come to you and say, these little ones that I gave you, what became of them? What did you do? I blessed you with this. Did you do what was right? Did you do everything in your power to give them the best chance possible? We have a super chat from, I think I need to expand that. Andrew, military service now? No. No, no. No. I wouldn't lift a finger, and I wouldn't lift a finger to help this government to do anything. You think I'm going to send my son, my daughter, to go die in some foreign conflict to enrich bankers and rich elite? No, no. I would sit in jail. I'll sit in jail before I would do that. I would do whatever it took. I would burn this all down. I would take my family and no one would ever find me. If they started pulling kids off the street, they started dragging kids into mandatory military service to fight some nonsense war, not on your life. It would be my mission in life to protect my children. And I've already, Mrs. W and I talked about this. This is far-fetched and probably something that will never happen. But in a situation where something like this happens, there's nothing around here that's so important to me that I wouldn't drop it in a heartbeat to protect me and mine. So no, I wouldn't lift a finger. Let them go fight the battles that they start. Let those senators and those rich bankers and those rich corporations that are profiting, war profiting off of all of these conflicts, let them send their children. That's the way it should be. It should be, when I become president, if I could just be president for a day and make policy, one of the policies that I would make is this. If you are going to vote for war, if you're going to vote to send our men and women over to foreign conflicts, then do you know who's going to be in the front, in the vanguard, in the very front? Their children. So know this, John McCain. I don't want to disparage the dead, but his fate is sealed as a traitor in many people's opinion. When John McCain and men of his ilk want to warmonger and to send our children into battle, let them send their own first and let them be in the very front of the battle, in the hottest part. And then we'll see how quick they are to vote to send our troops into conflict. May God have mercy on that traitor's soul. We have a super chat from Sailing Prepper, Dark Secrets. Shout out to you. Thank you very much for your generosity. He writes, what do you feel about different kinds of bug-out vehicles? I think it's one of the smartest thing a guy could do. Having a bug-out vehicle, what would I look at if I was starting from scratch? It would kind of depend on how big is my family. How many people do I need to travel and to carry and to get out with? But I would say the argument could be made, I think about probably the best choice a guy could get into would be probably a Toyota, whether it be a Tacoma or a 4Runner. You know, they're very capable. Those vehicles are tough. They still sit on frames. You can get locking differential options, and the accessory market for those is tremendous. From rooftop camper options to interior parts, coolers, slide-out toolboxes, kitchens, etc., etc. You just couldn't beat it. If I was going to put together an end-of-time bug-out vehicle, let's say that I lived in Los Angeles, had a family of 4, maybe I wasn't in a position to leave, but I didn't want to be stuck there. I was kind of wanted to have some options. I'll tell you, I would move heaven and earth to have a decent overland type of a setup. And what's really nice about that is times are tough, money is difficult right now. Building an overland rig is something that you can do with something you already have. You're not just putting money into something that is for a potential problem that may or may not happen. You can improve a vehicle that you're using for your daily vehicle. I think it's totally possible to build a very capable overland vehicle from your daily driver with a few modifications. You know, you don't have to turn it into a full-on RV that's not going to be usable for day-to-day stuff. Let's say you and your wife both are going to have vehicles. You know, get a Tacoma, get a couple Tacomas, a Tacoma or a 4Runner or something like that, his and hers, and have it set up, or at least have a plan where you guys are going out and practicing. And what a great way to spend the weekends. You know, if you guys live in Los Angeles, you know, take your overland vehicle and run up to Big Bear, run up to Mammoth, run up to the Sierras on the weekends and start working and practicing with your systems. Not only are you going to have great time with your family and you're going to get away from all of the chaos of the city and be in God's country, but you'll also be testing your systems. And in the event where you need to get out, what a great position you're going to be in. It's going to be old hat to you. You're going to have the skills, you're going to have the hardware you need, and you're not going to be like the rest of the people, starving to death, turning into zombies, killing one another. It's a good question. I think it's a great idea. For urban people who live in really crowded areas, having an overland vehicle is a great idea. Mr. Tim Lindemann, $20 super chat. Shout out to you. Thank you. Thank you. I sure appreciate your generosity. Blessings to you and your family as well. We have a member's message from Mr. Evan Roach. Shout out to you, Evan. Good to see Evan here. Evan writes, hey, Cody, deployments are the same. Fresh underclothes make you not care about how dirty you are. Our thoughts and prayers with little Wranglerstar. Yeah. Boy, that's the truth. Yeah, that is the truth. I'll tell you, there's been times, I think back on a time where I was really struggling, you know, about a week or so into a long deployment. I was suffering from heat exhaustion, headaches, you know, just really, really miserable. And getting up in the morning, you know, it just rips your guts out to have to put those hard old boots on and your feet are swollen and hurting. I'll tell you, man, pulling on some clean underclothing, of good quality cotton, good quality wool socks, it just gave you what you needed to get through the day. It makes all the difference in the world. And it's hard to put together 21 pair of socks and underwear and shirt. Now, not everybody has that. And it's expensive too, especially when you have to buy wool socks. You know, what's a good pair of wool socks cost? You know, $25, $30. So fortunately, I have all my old stuff, you know, from when I was doing it, that and Jack is my size now, so he's using a lot of my old stuff. Thank you, brother. I sure appreciate that. Thank you, Evan. Mr. Joe, we have a super chat from Joe, and Joe writes, I recently bought my first home and need a generator for hurricane season to take a family property. Sorry. My brain moves faster than my mouth here. Let me back up here. Joe has a good question. Joe recently bought his first house, and he wants a generator for hurricane preparedness. Season to take to family property for construction work. What would you recommend I get in this case? I think that every professional homeowner should have a Honda 2000i generator. It's going to cost you about $1,000 to buy one of those. With that generator, you have a lot of capability. One, it's very small. very compact, about 40, 45, 50 pounds. Pretty much everyone can lift it up, move it around in the back of a truck, and that's something you should consider pretty heavily. Having a generator that's so big that you need special equipment to load it and unload it it's a problem, especially if you're working by yourself. So the little Honda 2000i really solves a lot of problems. What you can do with that, and that living in a place that the power went out regularly and could be off for up to a week. I have personal experience with this, and I've just run the guts out of the little Honda 2000i that I have. I still have the original one. That's going to give you enough power to do a lot of things. You're going to be able to keep your refrigerators going. You're going to be able to power a couple circuits in your home. What I typically would power would be a circuit to the kitchen and maybe a circuit to the bathroom, main bathroom on the house, and maybe the bedrooms where you can put lights on. But mainly the kitchen. If you want to really whittle it down, the kitchen and your refrigerators. That's going to protect your food. You're not going to be able to run a whole house on this, but you can keep the essential things going. It's ideal for job sites. If you're going to go out there, I mean, that's pretty much the standard for job sites if you're going to be out there running skill saws and etc. Now, if you need big power or bigger power than that, maybe even 240, I would probably jump up to the 3000. The 3000 is a really nice unit. It's significantly bigger than the 2000, and now you're talking about a two-person generator. It's also going to have electric start. So if you have children that might need to start it, your wife, etc., they really appreciate that. Not everyone is down with a pull start, if you know what I mean. So those are really the two that I see around here. When I look at what my buddies have that I trust, contractors, capable dudes, they all either have a 2000 or they have the Honda 3000, the EUs. Those are, I think, the gold standard for professional homeowner gasoline operated generators. Also, what's nice with the Hondas is that you can get those dual fuel. What that means is you can run them on gasoline as well as propane. Propane is very enticing because propane has an unlimited shelf life. Your gasoline, if you take care of it and you buy non-ethanol and you store it properly with proper cans, is going to get you, let's say 18 months, maybe you could push it to 2 years. It's going to be degraded at then, but it would still most likely run your generator. Whereas propane, because it's in a sealed container, it does not go old. The propane that you have in your tank now is still going to be good in 10 years. But you're limited with where you can fill it, that sort of thing. So I like options, and that's another reason why you should look at those Honda little EU generators, because of those dual options. Get the kit where you can run it both ways. That way you can run it off fuel or your propane tank. If you are established, you get into your place, your property, your retreat, your bug out location, and you've got large multiple propane tanks, well, that's a great option then. Now you can tee off of that. You should, you're going to run a line up to your house anyway. Tee off for a little, put a tee in there where you can power your generator off of your main system. Just like some houses, you'll do a little tee off so you can run your gas grill, so you don't have to deal with the bottles, right? The same type of thing. Well, now you've got a system that's really going to be reliable for you. So I would consider that. If you wanted to have a big system, something that's going to run your whole house, not at the same time, you have to make choices. What I did and what I choose to do is the Honda, the big one, the 6500. The 6500 Honda is the biggest of their EU generators, and that's going to give you a lot of capability. You'll be able to run the majority of your house, you'll be able to run your furnace, and more importantly, you're going to be able to run your well pump. And that is critical for a lot of people. If you have a deep water well with a 240 volt pump in it, when that thing starts up, it puts a tremendous spike. There's a lot of power required to do that. And your smaller generator is not going to be able to do it. Not only that, if you are trying to power a deep submersible pump with not enough power, a generator that's too small, you can damage that pump. And that's not something you want to do, because that's not something you can service yourself. If that burns up or you do something foolish with that pump, you're going to have a well guy come out and with special equipment and lift that out. Could you figure out a way to get that out of there? Yes, of course. I could build a tripod out of 3 logs and a come along, and I guarantee you I could figure out a way to hoist that thing out of there. Would it be easy? No, it wouldn't, but it could be done. So just kind of know that. So I would start with a 2000i. If you wanted a little bit more capability and you don't mind something that's going to require 2 people to move, then get with a 3000. But for me, if I could have anything, I would have 2. I would have a 2000 for just general day-to-day work, and I'd have the big one, 6500, for a backup. We have a super chat or member message from William Cordell. Shout out to you, William. William writes, in Florida, our forestry department has regular controlled burns to keep everything in check. So the wildfires are far more infrequent. We do that here as well. Actually, we just were having controlled burns 2 weeks ago. Now, this is just my opinion. From what I've seen, usually the Forest Service, the state, government employees are going to be in charge of controlled burns, prescribed burns. As we know, anyone that works for the government, especially at the federal level, is exceedingly risk averse, meaning no one wants to stick their head out. I think sometimes that maybe they're a little bit too conservative with this, sometimes that they're unwilling to do controlled burns for the very reason no one wants to be responsible for it. I think anyone knows that would be in charge of a controlled burn if this were to get away from us, if this were to get up into the urban interface and start burning down homes, it would be the end of my career, and therefore they're just unwilling to take the risk, in my opinion. So I see them do controlled burns. Do they do enough of them? In my opinion, they don't. But yeah, that's the way it should be done. It should be done. You know, in the past, there were not so many of these catastrophic, devastating wildland fires because God's plan is for the forests need to burn from time to time. It's good for them. It's good for the vegetation. It clears out undergrowth. Incredible thing. Let's take the Douglas fir tree, for example. The Douglas fir tree thrives in wildland fires. It doesn't burn too hot. Back in the day, maybe every year, maybe every other year, lightning strike, could be Indians would even intentionally start fires because they would, like in the mountains, the last person out in the fall would set the whole area on fire, and it would rage and burn right before the snow came because they knew that the next season that would improve the huckleberry crop. And so it's just commonly understood this is a healthy thing for the environment. But what happened was the fires were so frequent and so common, they rarely got up into the crowns. They might get a lightning strike, a fire would creep along the ground, burn out all of the understory, burn out all the brush, and then there just wasn't really the fuel load. I mean, it's quite difficult to get heavy timber started burning. It's not super common to see a running crown fire, a fire running through the crowns of trees. Things have to get really, really bad to get up to that point. Typically, in an area that's been managed properly, you get a little ground fire, it creeps along, it smokes, it burns a little bit. And the beautiful thing about the Douglas fir tree, to get back to that, is that the heat that comes off of a moderate ground fire as it raises up, it almost requires, the cones are they open up. God made them that way. They open up and the cones start to throw their seeds, and they reforest, they replant themselves. The fire is what starts the process, or that heat. It opens up the cones. It's actually it's a great thing. The bark on a Douglas fir, an old growth Douglas fir tree, is so thick it can be a foot thick. It's an insulating layer. It protects the tree. So that was the way that God made things to work and how a natural, healthy forest works. What we've done is, because of environmentalism, knee-jerk reactions, the spotted owl, the darter snail, whatever, it doesn't make any difference. I don't know that it's about the animals. It's just about preventing people from doing things. It's just about it. We can go down the conspiracy rabbit trail on this, but regardless, it doesn't matter. They're not managing them. And they're getting so good at putting the fires out that the little fire that would have started and crept along the ground and kept things cleaned up, now that didn't happen. Now it didn't happen for 10 years. Now it didn't happen for 20 years. Now it didn't happen for 30 years. Now when you look into a forest, the brush and the understory are thick as dog's hair. It is a ticking time bomb. And now when a fire gets in there, lightning strike, man-made, it's so severe and so intense that it destroys everything. Even the old growth, even the stately old trees that would have not had any problem with a fire whatsoever, now they're consumed and everything is destroyed. So it's just poor, piss poor forestry management. Typical federal government. Hey, we can spend billions and trillions enriching all these people, spending money just printing it all over the world, but we can't take care of our own, can't take care of our own people. Oh, if we could just have a week, if we could just make policy for a week, and if I could be dictator for a week and then just step down and have supreme command just to do away with regulatory commissions, to do away with regulation and rules and all these laws and just start from scratch with common sense and plans and focus the efforts of looking after our own people, and the rest of the world be damned. Let us get our own house in order first, and then when we're strong and thriving and with good morale, and then we can go out, we can be a blessing to the rest of the world, but that's not what's going to happen. But absolute power corrupts, absolutely, does it not? No one's exempt from it. That'd be the worst thing that could happen to any of us. None of us would be able to handle it. It would go right to our head and we'd become dictators, I fear. We have a super chat from Mr. Andrew Susky. Shout out to you, Andrew, and new member. Welcome, brother. He says, do you believe we are in a cold civil war? Boy, it's hard. You could make that argument, could you not? Could you not make that argument? I don't know any more what's going on than you guys do, but it seems quite suspicious and curious. All of how many food processing plants are burning down, how many trains are derailing, how many just all these things that are happening. It seems as if there is an attack on the people. What's so sad, if that is the case, of how many people are just completely immune to it. The moment you say or even mention this or bring this up, like there might be someone in this country or some entity or something working against this right now. People look at you like you're crazy, a lunatic. My biggest concern is the public education system, the minister of propaganda, whatever that is, that's been operating in Hollywood, has been so effective that the people no longer have the ability, American people, no longer have the ability to see what's taking place right in front of them. They could see with their own eyes something taking place, and they will not accept it. It's complete. It is the mind control is almost complete. We learned that from the COVID lockdowns. We learned that from, well, we saw, didn't we? Narrow be the way, and few be that find it. That's what the good book says. Do not be surprised if most people don't see it, can't see the truth. It is just a sad reality. But I would say, I don't know, but it seems suspicious, does it not? Thank you, Andrew. Good question. Mr. Leo. We have a super chat from Mr. Leo. Leo writes, love you, Wranglerstar. Thank you. I appreciate that. Really do. And Special Operations Equipment, SOE. I have to say, speaking of which, I am a new fanboy for SOE. I have 3 pieces of SOE equipment. I have, of course, my 3 Radio Kit Proho bag, which I love. But I'll tell you, the one that's been I'm really excited about. And it took me a minute to warm up to this. I've had several of these type of bags, but the FUPA. This is the SOE FUPA that was designed for, I don't know all of the background, but what I got from designed for people that are active dudes, kayakers, hunters, where you have a need for equipment. Let's say fly fishing. Fly fishing where you're in waders, maybe you're in bear country, you want to have a firearm, you want to have extra magazine, flashlight, things you need. You can't deal with traditional holsters. Man, I love the FUPA. I'll tell you, it is so versatile. You cannot appreciate the thought that goes into a piece of equipment like this. And I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm sharing this with you because I'm telling you how I genuinely feel about it. And I'm still learning the capabilities of this thing. But you take this one piece of equipment right here. The thought that went into this and how versatile it is, it astonishes me. One, basically it can just be a man purse. It's got a long strap on it, the waist strap that you can, half the time I throw it over my shoulder, right here. What do I have in here? I have my G19X with a light. I have an extra magazine, and I carry my extra glasses. I wear prescription glasses, so I either wear clear, or I'll take these off and I have prescription sunglasses, right, if I go outside. So I need to carry 2 pair. So I carry, in the main compartment, I carry my 19X in there with a light, and I carry an extra magazine and my sunglasses here, a case, and I go back and forth. So those are 3 things that I need all the time. I don't overburden it. I'm not talking about stuffing it full of things. This solves the solution for what I need. I don't want to deal with a holster. I don't want to wear a holster around home all the time. And I can't wear a holster if I go out and I'm doing something active. Many times it's just not appropriate all the time. So if you find yourself doing lots of different things, you're a really active guy, you're on motorcycles, you might be fishing, hunting, the FUPA is really a good solution for that. If that wasn't enough, with the included straps, and the buckles can be taken off, you can take them off or put them on, this can make a very effective chest rig. Right here, I've got a really good waist strap, I got a crisscross back type of deal, and that's the way some of the guys in the warband are using these on the dirt bikes. They've got it right here, and it folds down. You've got a nice little admin pouch there. It's very, very handy for that. You can throw it over a backpack, and it's really great. Great for that. Also, this could be, I haven't done this, but I don't know why a guy couldn't, it seems to me it was designed this way. These loops right here, you could put your buckles in there, and this could be used on a plate carrier, I think. I'll have to try that because it's got the Velcro on the back. I don't know why else they would do that if it wasn't for that, but that panel comes off. So, there's just a lot of utility. You could also wear it as a fanny pack, or you could, you can run a strap through the back. Imagine this like a giant, right there, there you go. Oh, that's it, it's a dangler. The FUPA, I got it right. The FUPA is a dangler for a plate carrier. So this will just go right on the front of your, like a placard, and you can so what I'm saying is you can see the versatility of it is really, really good. I did a short video on this yesterday talking about it, but I love my FUPA. I do. It is really part of my EDC. It's always within reach. I'm always grabbing it. I love it. I love it. And I love the construction and the quality of it. It's so enjoyable for me to have something that's made as good as it can be made. I'll tell you that the trip of through the JK Boot Factory, I'll tell you, I tried to, they called me. So here's the deal with JK. So JK, they have 50 employees. They've grown tremendously over the years. They started a small immigrant husband and wife team struggling with their boys to build this company. They started fixing, repairing shoes, and a small seamstress, husband-wife team. Bought a little shoe shop and expanded that into the building they're in now that they own 100,000 square feet, 50 employees, and 5 retail locations. That's incredible they were able to do that. And the whole time producing handmade the best quality boots that they can make. And I had these ideas, so they contacted me about, would you like to come up? We loved the Nick's video that you did, and we would like to build you a pair of boots. We think that we make some of the best boots available. Would you come up and see what we have doing? And Mrs. W and I agreed to do that. I didn't know much about Nick's. I inquired a little, or not Nick's, JK. I didn't know much about them. I inquired a little bit through some friends that are still active in wildland firefighting, and the report I got back was the guys on the ground, many of them consider JK boots to be among the best. Many people, of course, everyone has preferences. I'm not going to come here and say that Whites are best, Westco's are best, Nick's are best, or JK's or Frank's. There's room for everyone. I'm not going to. It's very small-minded in my opinion, and frustrating to me when I got in the comments. The moment I uploaded the JK video, the comments blow up with, well, what about Nick's? I thought you said Nick's made the best boots in the world, and now you're a hypocrite, basically, is what they're implying. It's not hypocritical. Is it hard? Was it so hard to understand that there may be more than one company that does really well at building boots? Do you not understand, beloved, that the Pacific Northwest is the mecca of handmade boots because of the logging industry, and we have a really rich heritage? And Spokane in particular has a disproportionately large number of quality handmade boot makers there, because that's just part of just a regional thing that just developed through the logging industry. Nick's, they make wonderful boots. White's makes wonderful boots. JK makes wonderful boots. Which one's the best? I don't know. But I don't have a problem recommending multiple companies. I would go to, if White's were to invite me, and I would very much love to go and see what they're doing. Or Westco out in Scappoose, Oregon, or even Danner. I don't have any problem with that. There's more than just one. With that being said, as we were traveling to JK, I really didn't know what to think of. I had made some inquiries, as I said, and I heard good reports back. So I was confident that it was a quality company. When we arrived there and started meeting the family, Tim and John and his brothers, and they had some wonderful employees. Some employees that they'd worked together for a long, long time. I knew immediately what I wanted to do and what I wanted to share with you guys. I had limited time. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to make a production like that, to try to tell a story, to share with you guys what I'm experiencing, the history, the quality, what's taking place when you have just a couple hours and you don't have a film crew. It was just me and Mrs. W. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I want to share this, and how do I do this in a way to really get the point across? The moment I met the family, Tim, and especially John, the patriarch that started, the founder, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I said, we're just going to go and John wasn't initially supposed to be in the video. When I met him, I insisted. I said, I want John to do this. I want him I want to talk to him. I want him to take us through the factory. He kind of came out of retirement, to come in to do this, gave us his time. I thought that was important because that really was his philosophy. It just gives me the goosebumps just thinking about it. His philosophy and pride and craftsmanship and his appreciation as an immigrant that came from a war-torn region, an oppressed region, and has been able to plug into the American dream and to change his life, his destiny, his family's life, and to honor that tradition and to maintain that quality was awe-inspiring. And I wanted him to be in the forefront of that. I wanted to let him talk and to show us, and that's what I did. Mrs. W and I, when I made that a first edit, it was a 30-minute video. We had a lot of disagreement about. She had something else envisioned. I had something else envisioned, and we went back and forth, and I almost completely changed that whole thing up and scrapped it and did it over but I'm so glad that I didn't, because the vision that I wanted, the story that I wanted to tell was John's, and I think that that came across. What you saw was genuine, what you saw was authentic, and even more so if you were to have been there. Who makes the best boot? I don't know. I don't know how you would quantify that. What I will do is I will tell you my personal experience. I'm having boots built right now. I've never worn a JK boot. I can tell you this. When we were done with the video and said goodbye to the families and everyone there at the factory, we went over to their retail location, and Tim measured me for boots, for custom boots. And so in this process, I was trying some boots off the shelf, just that they had. And I'll tell you this, I have worn handmade boots since I was 18 or 19. Even when I was young, when I was working in construction, I spent my own money to get Westco handmade boots. I understood the importance of that because my granddad taught me the importance of good footwear. I don't wear, and I never have worn, cheap boots. And people always say it must be nice to be able to buy expensive handmade boots. Yes, but it is nice. But I also bought these when I didn't have anything, when I was a $10 an hour guy working as a construction laborer. I spent my own money and I sacrificed because I knew it was important. So I'm coming from a position, a place where I get it. Am I a boot builder? Am I the final word on this? Of course not, but I have a lot of experience with them. I've worn all the brands, many, and I've worn them out. I've worn them on fire deployments. I've worked construction my whole life. I've been on my feet working my whole life. I know it. I get it. I get it. I've worn Westco. I've worn Nicks. I've worn Whites, and I've worn Danners. When I put those JKs on, they were the most comfortable, the lightest boots I've ever put on that were brand new. Nicks, breaking in Nicks smoke jumpers is brutal. Breaking in Whites, Nicks Hot Shots is brutal. Breaking in White smoke jumper is brutal. Ask Jack, he's doing it right now. You know, it can take weeks of time. I felt like, and this has been echoed to me from a lot of other people that I trust, I felt like I could have put those Nicks boots, or those JK boots on, the stock ones, and these aren't even custom made for me. This is a stock boot for just general purpose. I felt like they were mine. I felt like that they were so light, so much lighter, and so much more flexible, and the arch was so good, I felt like I could have walked right out of the retail space and into a fire without having a break-in process. That's something that was unique that I've never experienced before. Now, that was my initial impression. This is also the impression and the same report that I'm hearing back from a lot of people that are on the fire ground, is comfort and light, comfort and light, comfort, light, and durability. So that's what I know. What will it be like when I get my own? I'll report back. When they come in here, we'll do an unboxing and we will find out. I was so impressed with them also when I was there. Jack is going to be going into fire. Jack just bought with his own money, $600, his first pair of Whites. He bought White smoke jumpers. Mrs. W and I ordered Jack a pair of JKs, and he's going to have two pair. You know, I did that primarily because I'm very interested to hear back. We will be able to get a report back from Jack firsthand, regardless of my bias or anything, what his experience was. He'll go to fire wearing Whites. He'll go to a fire wearing JKs. And I will be very, very interested to hear what his experience was and what he would consider to be the better boot in that environment. And that's something I can share with you. So that's all I can say about that. It is frustrating to have to deal with that negativity, but what it is, people that make comments like that and that are very distrusting and very quick to put a label of shill or sell out upon you, you know what that is, and the guy's got to understand it, it's projection. I don't see the world that way. I don't automatically assume the worst when someone does something. I try to understand that, oh, I thought, he liked this brand, now he likes this brand. I assume that maybe something took place, or maybe both could be good. But someone that automatically defaults to making these accusations, they are projecting their own character, the way that they are. They're most likely dishonest, and they assume that the rest of the world is dishonest as well. They view the world through their own deceitful and lustful eyes. So that's what it is. They tell on themselves, they expose themselves with their questionable character. So shout out to our friends over at SOE. He writes, SOE writes, we love our TRD Pro Forerunners and our Tundras. Yeah, there you go. The Pro, the TRD Off-Road, Mrs. W has a TRD Off-Road Forerunner. They have a lot of capabilities. Locking differential in the rear. Some of the newer ones going to be coming with locking differential front and rear. You've got crawl control. You still have a vehicle sitting on a frame. It's got a reasonable tow capacity, and you just have the Toyota quality, which is a byword for quality. I mean, what's going to be better than a Toyota, really? In resale and in quality, you're going to be hard pressed. I don't know. There isn't anything. There isn't anything. Right? Yeah. There's a lot of this, the whole Overland movement, man. If you're just now hearing about this and getting on board with this, you're late to the game. This has been brewing for 20 years. Came out of Australia and is very popular in the US. And anyone that's awake to the situation and wants to have options, meaning if things go down, if we have civil unrest, we have riots, if we live in the city, to not have a plan, beloved, for your family as priest and head of your household is irresponsible, in my opinion. Do you need to be the world's best prepper? You do not, but you need to have a plan. You need to have a fallback position. If you can't afford to have another place, a cabin, a small piece of land, someplace where you can get away from the city, or family members that you can retreat to, this is the next best option, in my opinion. And if you can't afford that, I would look at getting a wall tent. Get on Facebook Marketplace, find a 12 by 16 canvas wall tent, make sure it's got 4-foot sides, an elk hunter's tent. Get an elk hunter's tent, get a small wood stove, and get out there and set it up and practice using this. If you have just a vehicle, a car, a passenger car, you can put this thing in the back. You can put this, my granddad hunted elk in Hell's Canyon out of a sedan all through the 40s, 50s, and 60s. It wasn't until the 70s he was able to buy a pickup truck and have something to haul. But him and his brothers would go over there and haul all that stuff in 2-3 weeks at a time, live in remote, austere environments in super cold weather, as warm as a bug in a rug in a wall tent. And you can too. My family, when they escaped Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl, traveled over the Rockies, kids and women and all, and they lived in canvas wall tents for 3 years in the frozen forests of northern Idaho until the war. And you can do it. I grew up living in those tents hunting, and they're excellent. Thank you, SOE. And thank you for making such good products, man. I have another one that I'm very excited to share with you, the micro chest rig, which is just about to replace my current one. We have a super chat from T. Greeny. Shout out to T. Greeny. T. Greeny writes, 2 years service for defensive military would be a noble thing. The war machine today is not that and has not been for decades. Great point. Yeah, do not support them. Beloved, what we need to be doing is becoming ungovernable. Pushing back and saying, no, we're not advocating violence here. As I'm fond of saying, our struggle is a spiritual war. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Now, does that mean we're not going to defend ours if someone comes with evil intent? We're going to defend it. We're going to defend it violently. And anyone who does attempt to try to walk on this is going to regret it seriously. But we're not taking the fight to anyone unless we have no other choice. Now, if we have to be preventative, If we see a threat, could be a neighbor, whatever that may be, there may be a situation where things need to be taken into your own hands and you need to stop something before it becomes a problem. That is likely going to be the case in the future. But ideally, we want to be left alone to raise our kids, to be in peace without them trying to subvert our authority or force their will upon us, because we won't have it. We've had enough of it, and it's time to stop. It's time to start saying no. When you see this stuff, beloved, when you see these flags, when you see this literature in our libraries, when you see this globo homo being forced down your throat, you know, I would still be your friend if you were actively working to dismantle some of this nonsense and act accordingly, whatever you have to do. I have heard that there is a movement of TradCon mothers that are actively removing this filthy and vile literature away from the public libraries. They're dropping it into trash cans, they're tearing pages out, they're even going so far as to removing it from so that it can't be accessed. This could also include magazines. Anything, when you see these things around, I'm not telling you what you should do, you know, and then you certainly shouldn't be breaking the law or defacing or vandalizing anything. I'm just telling you that there are people that are so fed up that they're doing this, and I can't say that I'm disappointed. Mr. Dennis Mottberg, thank you, brother. Appreciate your generosity. And we have a member message from Thomas, and Thomas says, do you have an opinion on the Boy Scouts, either historically or present day? Well, the Boy Scouts traditionally have always been a great thing. When I was growing up, a man or young man that achieved an Eagle Scout, that was something to be very proud of. I think most boomers and maybe even some Gen Xers would have held that in high regard. As an employee, an employer, if I were to have seen 2 applicants and it was down to that, and one was Eagle Scout and one was not, it would have swayed my opinion back in the day. The Boy Scouts now are over. Once it was infiltrated by feminism, it was lost, and they capitulated, and it's over. So it's done. It's a thing from. It's done. We have a super chat from, or member message from Old Heart. Good to see Old Heart in the chat. Old Heart writes, I was feeling the pull to leave our church due to the overwhelming sense of complacency. Yeah, well, I can relate to that. But I nominated as deacon. Do I stay, lead, change, or go? I guess it depends on what type of resistance that you run up to. I can tell a personal story of someone that was in a situation like this. A very strong masculine man, a man that loved God, a man that was particularly talented in the ministry and that had affected, and still does today, many young people's lives. A real heart for the struggles of young people. The perfect guy that you want to be plugged in to young men, especially young men that didn't have fathers. Ex-military, honest, hardworking, a good dude, a personal friend of mine. When he saw the failings of the church, especially through COVID, and saw the weakness of the church and how it capitulated to the state demands, he took it upon himself to try to make some change in the church, to try to stand up and to encourage and strengthen the weaker members, hoping that his faith and strength would be infectious and that would see the church come through heroically through COVID rather than capitulating and failing like so many did. And you want to know what happened to him? He was driven out and castigated and demonized to the point where he was no longer even welcome to darken the door. So That was a very difficult thing for him. And it was especially knowing that he was in the right, that he was on the side of God, and yet the church would not allow him. When you get to a point like that, if your church is complacent and not growing and the power of God is not there, I would fall back to what Jesus said. And when faced with a very similar question, he said, let the dead bury the dead. Meaning that we have more important things. Your time would be better spent to be out working and reaching with people that are willing to learn and to listen. Your time would be better spent to sharing the gospel to folks that are hungering and thirsting for the word, rather than trying to awaken a corpse. How long do you suffer a church before you turn your back on it? Do you give it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? Is there power in the church? Is it growing? Are they preaching the true word? I can't speak for you. I don't know all your situation, but I have to say that if you were to answer those questions no, then it might be time to move on. Mr. Ethan Carta, shout out to you. Welcome. We have a super chat. Ethan writes, any advice on the best way to educate my liberal family on the importance of knowing how to operate firearms? Or is it a waste of time? I have found that it's very difficult to get anyone to learn anything that would stick and be of any value if they don't want to do it themselves. I guess how I would say, I would maybe try one time. I would explain to them. I think it's important that you know how to be competent with this particular tool, and these are the reasons why. Lay out your argument, make your case. If you make your case, and you don't get any warm reception or the slightest bit of interest, then you're wasting your time. If they were to come to you and ask you, when a man comes to you for advice, then he's willing to listen. But if you try to force someone to do something, they may do it because your family or sense of obligation, but that'll probably be the last of it. It's unlikely that they'll ever do anything or take it any further. So I would clearly identify what it is you're trying to accomplish. Why do you want them to get up to speed on this? If you can make this argument, lay it out there logically and lovingly, and then determine how they respond. And if one of them responds positively, then that's where you spend your time. If they don't respond, they don't see the way you see it, then shake off the dust of your feet and just realize that it's just not going to happen. That's probably the way I'd look at it. I wouldn't harbor resentment. I wouldn't get frustrated. I would just realize it's just the way that it is. And if they don't respond, then you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. No, never has there been a truer statement. We have a super chat from Prague who writes, Cody, do you know if I can put a hand pump on a deep well? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I don't know of all the brands out there, but nor do I have the specific numbers. I'm going to go off of memory here, and this could be completely wrong. But I have installed 2 simple pumps in 2 wells at or around the 200-foot range, somewhere around there. And that was considered to be not necessarily deep by Simple Pump. I believe you'll have to go to their site. Go to simplepump.com. They have all these questions answered, but I believe that they have options, or there are options available to go down 5, maybe even 600 feet deep for a hand pump. Now, there's also solar sun pumps that run that are 12 volt, they're low voltage, that are also deep water pumps that are an option, meaning you'd have to throw up a couple solar panels, But the nice thing about both these, whether it's a simple pump or the solar pump, is that these can be installed at the user end, meaning Proho can install them themselves without any special equipment, especially the simple pump. I've installed two myself. I installed one by myself, and the last one we put in here at our current place, my manservant Jeremiah and I, we did it together. I could easily install 200-foot deep hand pump by myself in an existing well casing. Very, very good system. The solar ones I have not done, but I think the process is very simple. So I would say yes. I would say yes. How deep? What's the maximum? That I'm not sure. Go to Simple Pump and they can help you out there. They have a calculator where you can put in what, if you don't know how deep your well is, let's say you're currently pulling on water out of a well. I don't know about your state, but I think it's probably the same nationally. The well drillers have to have what they call a well report, which will have some information. What type of strata media that they encountered when they were drilling, and it varies back and forth, but the key thing is it'll give you your depth, what the level where the pump is sitting, and your gallons per minute, GPM. How much will it sustain? Armed with those two numbers, you can go to Simple Pump and use their calculator and determine what it's going to require you to get water out of the ground. And that's where I'd go. I would point you to them. Again, I'm speaking about things that I have very limited experience on. We have a super chat from our friend Mr. Brian M. Shout out to you, Brian. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for your faithfulness. Brian writes, here in NoCal, we just blame Pacific Gas and Electric for all the fires. Well, you know why that is, don't you? Then increase rates so everything can be paid for. Also, most fires have been being started by their equipment in the last few years. Yeah, well, here's the problem. So we live in a litigious society. What's the first thing that someone says when they get mad? I'm going to sue you. Here's my understanding. This is an outsider's understanding, and probably wrong, but this is how I see it. A lot of these fires have been started by down power lines from windstorms. Now, we deliver the Pacific Northwest because we have unlimited power up here in our massive hydroelectric dams. Hydroelectricity is among the best, probably the best way to produce power. We produce so much hydroelectricity in this area that we ship a tremendous amount of it down to California. Well, those feeder lines, those lines that go down, there has been some problems with the way that they're hooked. And they have this metal clasp. And these metal clasps, as the wind whips back and forth, they move. And as they move, they wear. And when they wear through, they fall on the ground and then they start a fire. A couple years ago, there was a big lawsuit over this. And I believe the California Power Administration was held liable for this and on the hook for millions and millions of dollars of damage. Well, once this happened and once they were sued and they lost in court, and again, I could have the facts wrong. This is what I have in my mind. This is how I remember it. They said, fine, this is what we're going to do. Whenever there's ever a hint of wind or a potential of a fire, we're just going to shut the power down. Just shut it down, and that way we don't have to run any risks. If this is the way that you want it, then this is the way that you get it. So from what I think that's a big problem with it. As far as rates and who's responsible for starting what and where, I don't know. It's just, you reap what you sow, beloved. We have been living off of the benefits of a well-built infrastructure for a long time. Roads, bridges, power grid that was built by previous generations that had the desire and to build things very well, but we haven't been putting back into them. So well were these bridges and power lines and infrastructure built that they've been able to last even beyond their expected or their intended service life. Are we putting back into this? Are we putting back into roads and bridges? No. We're stealing from the middle class to enrich the wealthy through constant war profiteering. And we're putting we're putting Band-Aids on. How do I know this? I have a very good friend who is in a high position with power delivery to California. And we have very detailed and lengthy conversations about this particular vulnerability. And what he tells me is that sometimes when things are when the demand is very high from California, when things are running, they're all the electricians and the electrical engineers are like just looking at this infrastructure realizing, I hope it doesn't blow up. I hope it doesn't get overloaded, because if something happens, we can't do a darn thing about it. He told me about a couple of different individual power transformers that are so overburdened and so important that if something were to happen to them, and this could be something as simple as Cletus with a hunting rifle, getting mad and firing a shot at one of these, that it would take 2 years to replace them, even if they could, and they could only be built overseas. He says, you have no idea of how stretched and how vulnerable the power grid is, and how one man could completely disrupt hundreds, if not, or thousands, if not millions of people in an act of terrorism. You know, and no one speaks about this. And yet we just put Band-Aids on and just patch up here and patch up there and rolling blackouts. Beloved, in my opinion, we haven't seen the beginning of it. Wait till, if we get in a position where someone actually starts, with ill intent, starts going after this, if you live in these urban areas, these mega cities, especially where it's hot, in the desert, California, it will cease to exist. Can you imagine what happens when Californians, when Los Angeles, without power, water, or electricity, what that will develop, what that will turn into? Just fly over that area, and as far as you can see, houses and people, and can you imagine what would take place if those people didn't know where their water or food was going to come from? Oh, it'd make me shudder to be anywhere near that. That's why I left those places a long, long time ago. We have a member message from Noah Cloud. Shout out to you, Noah. Noah writes, I battle with local politicians about the importance of forest management. To them, it's clear cutting and extreme conservation, no in between. There is no common ground. See, you think, Proho, as a well-reasoned and logical individual, seeing the problem clearly, you think that if I could just explain to them what the solution is, they would hear me. Of course, you know, they are reasonable people like me. What you don't realize is they're not like you whatsoever. The gulf between them and us is so wide and so far, there is no more coming together. To think that we are Americans with this extreme left and this extreme right, and that we just get the right politician, we just get the right people in place, that everything will be fine, is you're deluded and you're insane. There is no coming together. The gulf that we have now is very wide and only widening, and will continue to widen. So to go into, if you go and say your piece and you receive the response that you have received, waste no more time of it. You know, Christ told us that when you're evangelizing, and this is a philosophy of life, that when you're evangelizing, you can go and you can knock on someone's door, and they will either receive you or they will not receive you. He says, if they receive you, come on in and sit down with them and make your abode with them. Eat with them, sup with them, share with them what you have to share with them, that all will be benefited. But if they won't have you, if they won't listen to you, he says, waste no more time on it. He says, you turn from them and you shake the dust of your feet off. You shake the dust of your feet off upon them, as a curse upon them, meaning that let their decision be upon their own heads. You do not have an obligation to continue to beat your head against a wall, to try to force something that will never happen. It's not happening. It's us versus them. And that gulf is simply going to widen further and further. Waste your time. Don't waste your time on people that won't hear you. Put your time into people that are like-minded, that will actually listen to what you have to say and that will respond. And there's not going to be very many of them. We have a super chat from Silas Porter. Shout out to you, Silas. Silas writes, I have a 12 by 16 portable building that I would like to store my gas in. I'm concerned that with poor ventilation and with my riding mower being stored in there, it would be a fire hazard. Not necessarily. A 12 by 16 is very small. The biggest problem with gas is expansion. If you go to a gas station, you'll see a series of pipes. They come up out of the ground, and those are vents. And what's so nice about underground gas is that, provided it doesn't leak, is that you have a consistent temperature, that consistent 50, 60 degree temperature underground. And therefore, the gas is pretty stable. When you store gasoline in a building that heats up, that has real big temperature variations, I've just about used up all my words for the live stream here. I'm running out of gas. Those wide fluctuations, what happens is you'll put your cans in there, and they're full, and it's 50, and then it raises up to it's 90, and then you walk in there and you've got 15 gallons of gas on the floor because it expands. It expands and blows out, and it will pop your gas cans. It will push itself out through the vent holes, all that stuff, and you got gas all over the place. So if you're going to store gasoline inside of a building like that, and it's not recommended, it should be outside. The best thing you can do, if you have no choice, is store it on the north side. The north side, the north aspect of your shop is going to be the coolest. It's going to be less likely to receive the heat from the sun. So get it on the north side and have it in good containers that are well sealed. Also, make sure that the shop has some sort of ventilation. Cut in a gable vent, open up a window, whatever, and do not fill your tanks, whatever they are, more than 3/4 full. If you only keep them 3/4, gives you a lot of room to expand. And as the fuel expands, it will raise up to the top, but it won't come out. You won't lose your fuel. You're better off, way better off, to store your gas on the outside in a lean-to shed. So what I would do is I would go, if it works for you, it doesn't always, it depends on the orientation, and if you don't want to have this where everybody can see it. So in a perfect world, if you haven't built your shop already, when you're designing everything, design it so that your gas storage, you're going to do a lean-to or a shed roof off your small one on the north side, and you can leave it open and put your gas out there. It won't be exposed to direct sunlight, and you won't have near as much problem with the expansion and the heat, which causes problems. So that's what I would do. So in a pinch, yeah, a guy can do it, but it's not the best idea. Mr. Tom Wooten, shout out to you. We have a super chat. Tom writes, I contacted Tim from JK about the expensive shipping to the UK. He sent me a $100 voucher to cover it. Such excellent customer service. That's amazing. That's amazing. One thing that I spent a lot of time with Tim. Tim is the youngest member of the JK Boots family, the youngest son. He's in his mid-20s, I think. And that young man has a heart for customer service. I spent 24 hours with him, and I saw how it pained him that someone was unhappy. When you deal with the public, especially when you're dealing with something as fussy as custom-made boots, there's no 2 feet alike. You can have difficult people to deal with, especially old dudes. There's a lot of dogma and there's a lot of think-sos, and I have to have things a certain way, and you know how we are. We get inflexible. But that young man has a heart for customer service like nothing I've ever seen. He's got a dedicated staff that reaches out. He follows up. It's everything to him. So I'm not surprised. I've never heard of anyone doing that before, but I'm not surprised. So just to give an insight of what customer service should look like, what Tom is talking about, he lives in the UK. He wanted to get some JK boots. The shipping was prohibitive. He reached out to Tim. What did Tim do? Knocked $100 off to help offset some of the shipping costs. There's his profit right there. He's essentially going to send you boots at cost. That's pretty good customer service. That should be rewarded. That's why I spent the time and drug my family 5 hours away to come and to share this, because this is the type of people that I want to work with. That's fabulous. Thank you for sharing that, Tom. I think that's helpful for a lot of us that might have been sitting on the fence. We have a super chat from another witness who writes, "What made you wake up?" Probably Owen Benjamin, I'd have to say. I'd have to say that what really brought me out of the blue-pilled ether of the Matrix, plugged in the Matrix, was Owen Benjamin. Listening to Owen's drunken streams back when he was on the porch, ranting and raving. That really opened my eyes. It started plugging me into things are not what they seemed. Mr. Daniel Summy. Shout out to you. Thank you, Daniel. We have a super chat. Daniel writes, "Your belief system has in common with real leftists, not modern liberals, than anything conservative." I'm not a conservative, and I'm not a leftist. I, like you, have been conditioned and brought up where I feel like I need to throw a label on someone. I need to throw a label on them so that I can put them in a category. I need to categorize them. Ask questions. Oh, you're a Trumper. That means that's really a foolish way to look at the world, because when you do that, you automatically, you put them in a category. You put complicated, interesting people into a category, and then that gives you the permission to no longer listen. Or we can put them in the category, oh, he's just a lib. Once you label a man as a lib, then you no longer have to listen to him. You no longer have to even see him as a human. That's a tactic that's been used in war for centuries. If you can demonize the enemy, you want an interesting book to read, and this is going to be, you have homework, Proho. You need to be reading this book. I'm adding another book to the official reading list. I think the book is called On Killing. Overton, if you're here, could you look that up? Put a link in there, On Killing. It's a study of an American military officer on the psychological effect of war and killing on individuals, soldiers, men, and the difference between how it affects you to kill someone hand-to-hand, like a hand-to-hand combat, versus perhaps a drone strike, and the history and why men. I'm not going to go into the whole book, but it's very insightful. It will open your eyes to a great deal. One thing that I got from that book, as well as other books, is that if you can demonize someone, take the humanity away from them by a racial slur. This happened in World War II. I remember my granddad, he'd never really met a Japanese man, but he would refer to them as those darn Japs, right? If it was a darn Jap, then it was okay to kill him. He wasn't you. He wasn't an American. He wasn't the same. He was less than you. He was dehumanized. Dehumanizing is what we're doing when we're putting someone in a category in the left or the right. That way we don't have to listen to them anymore. And that is something that all of us have been conditioned to do. I still do, and I have to fight against it. But now I understand it. And I understand that just because someone doesn't share my politics 100% doesn't mean we can't be friends, because ultimately we want the same thing. We want clean air, we want healthy food, we want a safe environment to raise our children, and we want to be able to prosper, and we want to be able to receive the benefits of our own labor, and we want to live in peace. Does that not cover majority of Americans? Can we strip out all that nonsense and everything? So labels, try to put a label on me. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Trumper. I'm not a right-wing leftist either. But there are things that both are all parties, whether they be libertarians, even nationalists. They have ideology, and they have things that would be a good idea that I could use and draw from. So from here on out, my fight, my struggle is not to let you put me in a category, and you shouldn't let yourself be put in a category either. And don't be dogmatic about what you believe. Just because you were a Trumper or voted for Trump or Republican, if you consider yourself to be a conservative and a Republican and a Trumper and thinking you're on the right side, let me ask you this. What have your people conserved over the last 50, 60 years? From the time that, how long was Rush Limbaugh raging about this and that and the politicians what has the conservative movement done? What have they conserved? They haven't done a damn thing. And you still ally with them. You still think that if you could get your guy in there, you could get your senator. Do you not understand that they're two wings of the same bird? Do you not understand that they mock you and laugh at you? That they come up and they have these congressional hearings and they pull these high-profile people in and they give them, we're going to get them, we're going to really pull them out on the carpet and give them the tough questions, congressional hearings nonsense. What becomes of it? You know what becomes of it? Nothing. Nothing's done. All it is it's bread and circus. It's dog and pony show. What happens that evening? Your right-wing conservative Republicans, your left-wing leftists, you know what they're doing? They're eating $400 steak dinners together and drinking $80, $90 bottles of scotch, laughing at you. What a fool they are. How many times how much mileage can they get with that? How many more times can they get up and have congressional hearings and you're up there, yeah, we're going to get that Jack Dorsey. We're going to get that Elon Musk. What happens of it? Nothing. It's a show to pacify you. If you're still supporting that, you're still supporting Trump, you're still supporting any of these liars, then you are the bigger fool than I thought you were. Goodness. Thinking men, still voting in Republican elections, thinking it's going to make a difference. Thinking men, adult men, thinking that the National Rifle Association is going to save their Second Amendment rights. We have a super chat from Rama Lama. Shout out to you. Thank you for your generosity. Yes, I agree. And Daniel Summy. Daniel writes, I already wrote that. Thank you, Daniel. Become ungovernable, beloved. Revile them. If you see one, if you ever get the opportunity to see one in an airport or sitting down to a meal, give him no peace. Make him uncomfortable. Make it to the point where they're no longer able to have a meal, to no longer able to function among good men in society. Make them understand how much we revile them. We have a super chat from James Simmons. Shout out to you, James. James writes, any thoughts on RFK Jr.'s bid for presidency? Who knows? Who cares? I no longer vote. I will no longer vote. I have no interest in it whatsoever. What takes place over there in that faraway land on the East Coast is a whole nother world to me. And I'm all done being a puppet for them. I'm all done having any hope. I'm all done having anything to do with them whatsoever. What can I affect? I can affect my neighborhood. I can help my neighbors down the road try to save their house from this wildland fire. I can potentially have some effect with what's around me, my friends and neighbors. Outside of that, let them burn. We have a super chat from Noah Cloud, and Noah writes, love from Cloud's Village, Dowshaw Mash, Mr. W. Thank you, brother. And I'm happy to see Mr. Rama Lama is our newest member. Welcome, brother. Welcome to the family. Our last super chat, I was supposed to be an hour here. Our last super chat, Miroslav Mayer says, Cody, how much is the reloading skill required for Proho? Your thoughts? I don't know that everyone needs to be a reloader. I think you just need to know a reloader. There's two schools of thought on that. There's dudes that made the decision, well, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to stockpile ammunition. I think everyone should have a healthy supply of ammunition. To start with, I would have 500 rounds per, with a few exceptions. If you've got a 9mm, this is to start with, 500 rounds, have a half a dozen magazines. For your primary, whether you go AK-47 or AR, whatever, 500 rounds, have a dozen magazines or so. When it comes to 22, I would probably up that. 22 is a very valuable caliber. It is very effective for hunting, can be a very effective defensive round. You say so, you say no, well, go outside and let someone shoot at you with one. Versatile, quiet, compact, you can carry a lot of rounds, and inexpensive. I would have more. 1,000 rounds, 2,500, you know, 10 bricks. It's not super expensive. I would have a little bit more of that. I'd basically take a 30 caliber ammo box and have that thing full. That'd be a good place to start. And then shotgun. When it came to shotgun, I'd have myself 250 rounds of shotgun or so, with a good combination of some slugs, some birdshot, and some double-aught buck. Shotgun's really versatile. It could be used for home defense, could be used for hunting, big and small game, uplands, birds, ducks, very versatile, but you know, kind of different ammunition needs. As just kind of a general rule of thumb, that's where I would start and start working at that. If I had to start from scratch, I'd at 100. You know, get 100 rounds for each, and then start working from there. Doesn't do you, I don't know that it's wise to have 5,000 rounds of 5.56 if you don't have your water purification in order, if you don't have a backup generator. So resources are limited. You have to look at your life like a Sims. You only have so many resources. How do I best apply them? What are my needs? Let the resources go to your needs. I understand it's fun. It's a lot more sexy to buy a new optic than it is to buy water filtration or some extra piping or storage, but be an adult. Be an adult. We have a super chat from Lenny213. Shout out to Lenny. And Lenny writes, from previous live stream, I chose the shotgun for home protection as an assault rifle, as assault rifles are not legal here in Ireland. Thank you for advice. Yeah, there's not a problem with that whatsoever. I wouldn't consider myself to be unmatched. You have any question about that? During World War I, the Americans introduced the scattergun or shotguns into trench warfare, and so fearful was this weapon that the Germans, if memory serves, filed a complaint that it was a savage and unethical weapon. You know, to give you an idea. And this is men, hardened German soldiers. So fearful was this shotgun. So don't think that that's irrelevant whatsoever. I'm not the big shotgun expert, not that guy. I have a general competency and understanding. I have many of them, but it's not my primary choice. If that's what I had to work with, you bet I'd be on top of it, and it would be a fearful thing. It would be a fearful thing to try to march into a man's abode that was resolute and determined and competent with this firearm. There are not many of us that would relish going toe-to-toe in this environment, and I think that that's an excellent, excellent choice. I keep one within reach, stagger loaded with buck and slugs, with a light on it in an 18-inch and a police 870 3-inch mag. Ferocious, and a great choice. Good for you. Shout out to Ireland. I'm hoping to visit your fine country in the next few years. It's on the top of our list. Mrs. W is actually 50% Irish. Half Irish and half Sweden. Yeah. And I laugh when people make fun of the fact that I have a weak, submissive woman that that is half Viking and half Irish. You have no idea. You do not everyone, not every man would be able to manage such a creature, I'll tell you. And do you ever really manage one? It's like riding a tiger. Thank you, beloved. May God bless you and your families. I really appreciate all of the involvement. I appreciate the super chats. We have a good group here, 800. We had a good turnout. Apologize for not, I don't apologize, it's just the way that it is. If I'm here at the house, I'm able-bodied, we will be doing the live stream, but there are times when we go out of town. I had a notion that maybe we'd be able to take it on the road. I'm just not going to do that. When I'm here, we'll do it, and I'm usually here, so. 12:30, Monday through Friday. That's where we'll be. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you especially for the moderators and the Big Fizz group and all of the loyal folks. It's always good to see the old names back in here. I really do appreciate it. Please, if you are a man of God, please keep my family and especially Jack and the firefighters in your prayers. There's a lot of young, courageous people out there on the fire line right now that are putting their lives at risk to save community homes, and I'll be praying for them. Keep them in your prayers, and that the Lord will bring my son back to me as well, and that he'll be able to show courage in the face of a difficult job and situation. I'll tell you, man, I could not be more proud of that boy. I was listening to the radio traffic with Mrs. W on the back porch yesterday, and it was the first time I'd ever been on her end of it. How many years, how many times did she spend alone at night, not hearing from me, not knowing what's going on, with little kids in the house while I was out on these things and not able to communicate? I was on receiving end of that. Even though Jack's not out yet, just the reality of the fact that it will soon be coming, that my wife and I will be sitting shoulder to shoulder on the back trying to follow what's going on and where he's at and what's he doing, and it's just different. It's just different. But I couldn't be more proud of those boys. Goodness. May God bless you and your families. Please pray for us. Lord willing, we'll see you on tomorrow's stream. Guys, be safe out there.